The Gottman Method has offered 4 or 5 really key concepts that are relevant to all couples therapeutic approaches. One is the concept of emotional flooding. We all get upset when we talk about things that are really important. Maybe we're okay at work, maybe we're fine with colleagues, but at home, we find that we just get stuck in these cycle conversations that we're not really our best self, or maybe we're seeing our partner who's not really their best self. We all do it. We say things that we don't mean. Maybe the next day we apologize. We don't even know where this comes from. Gottman has found that we all become emotionally flooded when the conversation is that important. We've got ways that can make a difference in the way you and your partner talk to each other, so you finally have the kind of conversation that you deserve. We want to help you stay in those conversations until you finally are heard and understood. One experience that we have is that oftentimes couples wait too long to get help. They've spent the last maybe 6 or 7 years in the kind of relationship they're just not happy with. And nobody deserves to be in a marriage where they're not happy. We can give you the tools and skills that you need to make improvements in your relationship. But the thing that I've noticed is that it's helpful that if both partners want to make a change, if they're invested not only in the therapeutic process, but invested in their marriage. Couples therapy can help. I often experience couples coming to me way too late. They struggle by themselves, they're stuck in patterns that are destructive. If they reached out a little earlier, we might be able to make a difference and help make their relationship better. Oftentimes couples come to me with experiences of fighting. It's really common. And, would you believe, not always a bad thing. It's the way you fight. One saying is that we marry problems. We see the world differently, and so it's not surprising that we fight about sometimes those different perspectives. We want to help you figure out how you can manage that conflict, how you can manage that different perspective so you're not wounding each other. Fighting's not the problem. It's how you talk to each other. I want to help you find a way that you can continue talking about those inevitable differences that you have in your relationship so that you can stay in those conversations until you're finally heard. There are ways that we can help you have a different kind of experience, especially when you see the world differently. Oftentimes couples come to me thinking that it's personality traits, that it's values, that we're just too different to be in this marriage. And that's a myth. Actually, what we know from Gottman's research is that we all fight about issues. It's inevitable that we marry differences. We marry problems. And masters of relationships find ways to stay in those conversations for a lifetime without hurting each other. What they eventually find a way to do is to honor each other's differences to the point where you actually can feel like those differences are celebrated in the relationship. We can help you get to that point, but oftentimes your past fights have created resentment, anger, unheard needs. We can help you find a different way to have those conversations so that you're finally heard, you're finally understood, and your needs are finally met. One common experience that couples come to me with is that their partners feel depressed, seem depressed, they're stuck, and they don't know what to do about it. The first thing is you're not responsible for fixing your partner. You can't make a difference in how they feel, but you can support them. We can help you find ways to support your partner when they might be stuck, might be expressing that depression in what you hear as anger or frustration. Oftentimes men experience depression and express it as anger, leaving you confused, not knowing how to support them. What we would help you do is to figure out where you're able to support and where that boundary stops, what you're not able to do. But then oftentimes, one person needs to spend some time in individual therapy, helping them work through whatever is getting them stuck in their life. Oftentimes couples come to me feeling emotionally disconnected, and they have felt like that for a while. What they say is that they're unhappy in the relationship and, quite frankly, lonely. One of the things that we're able to do is to spend some time thinking about what is connection? How do we build attachment? How do we build connection, friendship, and intimacy with our partners? All of us find ourselves in relationships where we feel lonely, where we feel emotionally distant from our partners. And oftentimes couples wait too long for the help they need. Gottman's research offers real ways to rebuild friendship and intimacy in the relationship. One of the things couples often say to me is that they no longer have a sexual relationship. Sometimes sex falls by the wayside because they spent so much time bickering, fighting, upset with each other. They no longer feel intimate. They no longer feel like they have their best friend in the relationship. We can rebuild friendships. We now know how. We know what friendships are made of. The way that you want your partner to accept you for who you are completely. That you want your partner to respond to you when you're in need. When you're hurting, you want them to drop the world, turn to you, and support you. We all do. We also want our partners to engage, be curious about us, ask us questions, create rituals of connections to make sure that we are spending time on a system of friendship. Those are going to be the things that build intimacy and build to a good sex life. Oftentimes we don't want to talk about sex. It's something that we feel ashamed of. And couples come to me saying they really don't have the sexual relationship that they want, that they would like in their lives. And it's happened over a long period of time. That might be their primary interest, but what we find is that we need to rebuild the friendship first. We need to rebuild trust and acceptance. We need to create a way for each partner to share what they desire, what they want in a sexual relationship with their partner. We have to rebuild the trust. Oftentimes, past experiences have wounded that trust, and we have to go back to those experiences and continue those conversations, or maybe start those conversations for the first time. One of the things that research tells us about good sex lives is that it includes talking about sex. And oftentimes we don't want to talk about sex. With couples that come to me, oftentimes they stop talking about sex. Maybe they had good sex for the first 3 months of their relationship, but for years they haven't actually talked about it. We can create a safe place to start those conversations again. We can create structured ways for you to have conversations that are different. So the really good thing about living in today's time is that we know a lot more about relationship. We know the building blocks to create a solid, strong, close relationship. We know that it takes conversation and dialogue about hard things, maybe things that we're not comfortable talking about and that we avoid. We can help create those safe environments to have those conversations. Many times couples come to me saying they want a better sex life, but we need to find a way to talk about sex that feels safe. One way is to create an acceptance for each person to say what they want, they desire, what they enjoy. And sometimes it takes a third person to help walk people through that process. Maybe there are past experiences that are creating barriers to sharing what you really want in your relationship. Fundamentally, what research shows is that we pair up in bonded relationships in order to keep safe. But more than that, when we need our partners, we need them to turn to us and to support us, hold us tight. Certainly there are dramatic moments where maybe we find ourselves in the hospital, scared, and we want our partners to be there holding our hands. But Gottman's research suggests something more. It's actually through the day that we say to our partner, will you be there? In small gestures and small acts. Maybe just even sending our partner an article or telling them about a story of something that happened during our day. Those are the times where underneath those bids, those times we turn to our partner, it's really a question. Are you going to be there? Are you curious about me? Are you engaged in who I am? Do you care? Do you love me? One of the things that we know from research And especially from our experience now in working with people who've experienced trauma, is that we bring our past into our current relationships. And sometimes those past experiences can make it really difficult to have the kind of conversations that we want. Sometimes we're dealing with today, but we're struggling with yesterday. We now know how the brain works through so much more information from neuroscience and fMRIs. We know that sometimes current situations are triggering physiological responses that create attack or withdrawal in relationships. Those patterns start to develop and they can become dysfunctional and they can become stuck for you. We've got ways to help think about past experiences if those are getting in the way of the way you're currently talking to your partner, or maybe the way your partner is hearing you. We now know that there are ways to improve what you bring into those hard conversations. Maybe at times you just don't feel like you're your best with your partner, but you're different with other people, and you don't understand why that difference is there within the relationship that matters most. It's the relationships that matter most that are sometimes the hardest. Sometimes when we get upset, the parts of our brain that we need the most go offline. Empathy and compassion are things that you need in your relationship. But when you get upset, when you become emotionally flooded, or you reach a place we all do sometimes called diffused physiological aroused state, those parts of the brain actually go offline. You are no longer able to use empathy or compassion to understand your partner. Current experiences in the relationship may be clouding the way you're hearing your partner. What we now know with generations of experience in dealing with these past hurts and pains in our own life is that there are ways to strengthen the way we walk into a conversation, especially when it's difficult. There are ways that we can understand why we're becoming upset and how we can express our needs more effectively to our partner. Oftentimes when we're upset, we're saying things and our partner just does not understand them. They're not really hearing us. And so what do? We take it to 11. We turn the volume up. We use behavior and language that may be felt as hurtful in our partners. And what we're really asking for is for them to understand us, to understand what we need. There are ways that we can help make those conversations, help you make those conversations better. We can slow down those conversations so that you better understand what you need in the moment, and maybe contextually what's going on. One thing that couples often tell me is that the fights they have might be about different details, but they feel the same. They feel as though something's happening that feels like a cycle in their relationship. It's repetitive, and they feel stuck, but they can't figure out what's causing each of them to feel such pain. Sometimes it's things that we bring into the relationship. Sometimes by slowing down the moment, we can better understand what we're bringing to those arguments. We can have a different kind of conversation where we're able to help our partner truly understand what the fight's about. Compassion and empathy are two parts of a relationship that are critical. But when we fight, they go out the window. Actually, parts of our brain that are responsible for these really complicated systems are no longer online. They go offline when we become upset. Emotional flooding and diffused physiological aroused states are different than feeling anger or feeling sad. It's those points where we become upset and we can no longer access empathy and compassion, where we can't really understand what our partner is saying to us without feeling defensive, without feeling hurt, without attacking sometimes. Empathy is the ability to understand what your partner is feeling and being able to reflect it back as a witness to that experience. In relationship, there's a skill that's much more important, and it's different than empathy. It's compassion. Compassion is understanding what your partner's feeling, but being able to step outside of that experience so you don't become flooded as well. so that you can actually help your partner navigate those confusing emotional feelings that they're having. Sometimes we're so emotionally intelligent that we feel what our partners feel. In fact, that's why we go to comedy shows or why we go to the theater. We actually have this felt sense with the others in the audience about what we're all seeing on the screen together. This is a system in our brain that creates a sense of emotional experience that our partners are feeling. But sometimes that gets in the way from us understanding truly what our partners are trying to say. Sometimes this actually gets in the way of us truly understanding what our partners are saying. There's another skill that we need to try to engage in with relationship. We can help actually engage another skill in relationship that's much better or much more productive. Oftentimes I find myself working with couples on another skill beyond empathy, but compassion. Compassion's a little different than empathy. It's the ability to feel what your partner is feeling, but almost like we do with the cliche putting the mask on your face, we're able to take care of ourselves first. By understanding where their emotions start and stop within our experience, we're better able to sit with our partners, whether they're angry, whether they're sad, and be there for them. With compassion, we're able to understand where their emotions start and our emotions stop. One of the common experiences that we all have is an understanding of how important witness is. In fact, there's whole religions based on this idea of witness. That you're finally heard means that you're finally understood. Many people come to me saying they just want to be heard by their partner. Empathy is one of the critical things that help you hear your partner and their emotional experience. One of the hardest things sometimes I deal with in couples therapy is the very fact that we see the world differently. We have different facts and details in which give us a perspective about what our experience is. In relationships, sometimes we'll just disagree with our partners. To be able to witness and validate and support a different perspective about the same experience is really critical. It doesn't mean that you agree with your partner and you can be able to feel safe saying that. It means something different. It means that you understand your partner. Oftentimes couples come to me just with this request of wanting to be understood. Understanding that we don't need to solve each other's problems is a huge relief. And a lot of times it's the men in relationships that feel this urge from within to fix the problem. And when we give permission that you do not need to fix the problem, what your partner might be asking for is just to be understood, it's a huge relief. Oftentimes, the couple is now able to talk to each other differently if they don't feel the pressure to have to fix the issue. Oftentimes, couples are able to make enormous progress by just understanding the steps to communication. A lot of men are wary of couples therapy or therapy in general. I work with men that come to me with relationship issues, and we're able to talk about what are they taking to their relationship that's contributing to this feeling of being stuck. Maybe their partner is asking for something different and they don't know how to give it. A lot of men are wary of therapy, and some are resistant to starting couples therapy with their partners. I work with a lot of men that want to see their relationship better, but they're confused about how to get there. Maybe they're frustrated, maybe they hold a lot of resentment for what their partner's not able to bring them. And in the work that we do, we can help better understand what their contribution to the relationship is. Many men don't have a roadmap, a lighthouse, a beacon to understand what's important in a relationship. There's some simple concepts around what makes relationships successful. We're now blessed to live in a time where research has been able to inform us what is a part of strong relationships. Often men do not have a strong model from their past to help inform them about what they need to be doing to contribute to a strong relationship. They've lost sight of what's important in how to support their partners. Oftentimes we turn in our business world for consultants or support, but in our personal world, we don't want to ask for help. But the truth is that we now know what makes relationships strong. We can give you a roadmap, a lighthouse, an understanding of what are the aspects of relationship that strong couples or masters of relationships have over a lifetime. How do you rebuild friendship? How do you address intimacy if it's waned or atrophied over the years? If you find yourself stuck in these conversations that just seem to repeat themselves, and you don't know what your partner is asking for, we can help you get there. We can help you understand finally what your partner might be asking for in the relationship. We now know from research what are the building blocks to strong lifetime relationships. And I can give you the skills and tools you need to offer something different for your partner. So you're finally able to understand what she's asking for from you. Maybe you hear anger, maybe you hear frustration, maybe she's pulled away. In individual therapy, we can help look at the things that you might be doing to contribute to that relationship. But more than that, I can give you a roadmap to making your relationship better, because we now know what relationships are made up of. In a relationship, whether you're a man or a woman, we're all looking for the same things. Oftentimes men will come to me confused about what their partner's asking for, and there's a lot of frustration and anger. Most men won't hesitate to get their car fixed, or maybe reach out for advice around their work. But in their own life, their relationships, the things that matter most, they're reluctant to ask for help. But the truth is, there is help available. We now know what the building blocks to relationship are, and I can give you the skills and the tools that you need to make a difference in your relationship. There are some foundational concepts to all relationships that we now understand. And I can give you the skills and tools that you need to make a difference in your relationship. Many men are reluctant to ask for help, but there's help there. There's foundational concepts around the way we see and express emotion. Maybe your partner is overwhelmed and they're expressing it to you with anger and frustration. We can help you understand what she's really saying. There's foundational concepts of trust and commitment and stability that we all look for in a relationship, that we have to rebuild. And those building blocks we now better understand from research. It's not an infinite process. I can give you the skills and tools to make a difference in your life today. How to rebuild friendship, how that can be a building block to intimacy, and finally having the sexual relationship that you're looking for in your relationship with your partner. Men oftentimes come to me saying that they find themselves in these cycles of fights. They seem to be about different things, but they all seem to have the same kind of theme. Managing conflict is an important part of relationship. And in fact, what we now know from research is that we all marry problems. You're no different than anyone else. The question is, how do we manage those conflicts? How do we address those differences that are inevitable in your relationship with your wife? I can help you better understand how to listen to her and what she needs from you in a different way, so it doesn't feel so out of control. In my experience, men often come to me with this misconception that they have to be strong, that they have to solve the problems in their relationship. But actually, strength sometimes comes, and especially in loving relationships, from vulnerability. Your ability to share what you're experiencing is difficult sometimes. Sometimes at work, we can share how we feel in a safe way, but at home, we find it really hard. Men often come to me with resentment and anger about the way they've been treated in the relationship. Sometimes they often hold the responsibility of the relationship as if they need to fix things. I wholeheartedly disagree. They're not responsible for the full relationship, only for their part in the relationship. We now know the building blocks to relationship, and I can give you the skills and tools that you need to be your better self for your wife. Oftentimes we hear our wives as angry, frustrated, the same conversations over and over again that become exhausting. Men come to me with resentment, with frustration, not knowing what to do. I can give you the skills and tools you need to be able to hear your wife differently, to offer different support for your wife when she's frustrated that maybe she's saying you're not hearing her, you don't understand what she's trying to ask for. There's a common experience in a relationship. When we talk about hard things, oftentimes there's certain patterns that emerge over a period of time in couples. One of the most common patterns that I see, fights that become patterns where one person doesn't want to stop talking about an issue. One partner is asking for a break. Maybe they're not asking for it effectively or in a way their partner's hearing, but they are. They may be looking down, maybe they shut down. Gottman would call this stonewalling. You're still engaged in the conversation, but emotionally you've become disconnected. You're trying to keep the conversation calm. You're trying to make sure it doesn't go off the rails. But what your partner is seeing is that you've withdrawn, that you've shut down. And this is scary. So what do? They turn the volume up. They pursue you even more. And this can pull you into your shell even further. Maybe you'll get up. Maybe you'll leave the room. Maybe doors will slam. This is a pattern I find my couples oftentimes falling into. This idea of pursuing and withdrawing is one of the most common patterns that couples find themselves stuck in. One partner has the experience that if they let this conversation go, they won't come back to it. If they allow their partner to leave the conversation, somewhere deep inside they feel rejected. The issue, the relationship, even themselves, what the partner is saying is, I don't care. They're turning away from their partner. This sense that your partner is leaving the conversation is scary because you don't have any experience that they're going to come back to the conversation. Couples come to me in cycles that they don't understand. If we can slow down the cycle and better understand what's happening from a distance, we're better able to stop it. So one of the most common cycles that couples come to me with is this idea of pursue and withdraw. When we're talking about really hard things with each other, we fall back on these tendencies, these ways that we respond to stress that repeat themselves. And in relationship, these will become these kind of go-tos in fights. So for example, many couples come to me feeling as though one person is pursuing and the other person is withdrawing. And what that means is that maybe you're talking about or fighting about a certain detail. Maybe it's how to get the kids to school. And you find yourself feeling as though your partner is withdrawing, doesn't want to have the conversation. Maybe they're saying to you, let's talk about it later, honey. Or maybe they're walking away from you, looking in another direction. So what do? You raise the volume. You try to say it more clearly, but the way they hear it is more loudly, more emotionally, and they become overwhelmed. But again, they can't express. We fight about all kinds of things. I hear couples talk about fighting about potato chips, bananas, who's getting the kids off to school. I mean, it's crazy. Some of the things that we fight about don't really matter. In the moment, they do, because they really are representational. They're metaphors, or they're things that we've experienced in our relationship before. They become symbolic to bigger issues. Underneath our fights are other things that we fought about before, and we find ourselves in these patterns that seem to repeat themselves. Maybe you felt it. Oftentimes couples come to me saying, it doesn't really matter what we're fighting about. I think it's almost like we're fighting about the same thing, but with different topics. And we fall into patterns. I see my husband withdrawing. He doesn't want to talk about the issues that are important to me. And I'm desperate to talk about these things because we need to try to figure out what's underneath these topics. And so oftentimes the wife will raise the volume and try to get the husband to engage in the conversation. And what they're seeing their husband do is withdraw. They don't engage. They become emotionally disconnected, distanced. Maybe they see him even walking away from them. When we see our partners walking away, what we're really feeling is that they're walking away from us. They're walking away from the relationship. And that can be scary on a very fundamental, innate level. And so what do? We pursue. We don't let our partners leave the conversation. What Gottman's research suggests is that when we start ramping up the emotional intensity of fights, we lose the ability to really discern what the fight is really about. And we feel threatened, we feel challenged, we feel scared. And we don't want to let go of the conversation, even if it's unproductive. We'll spend hours cycling through the same conversation like a roller coaster of emotion. Fear, sadness, rejection. So one of my personal experiences is with blended families. I actually have a blended family, 2 kids, 17 and 15, and we have a blended family. So I know firsthand what it's like to try to navigate both step parents and 2 homes. The kind of communication that a blended family needs is slightly different than other types of families, because you have not only a previous relationship, but you have a current relationship that you're trying to navigate. You're having to be parents both within your own household, but across households. Sometimes your relationship with your ex-partner is not really good. Communication in a relationship is hard enough, but with blended families, sometimes it can be even harder, because not only are you trying to create a sense of teamwork with your own partner, but you also have to negotiate with an ex-husband or ex-wife. And we have children together. The truth is, you never really divorce that ex-husband or ex-wife. They're always in your life. So communication skills are even more important in blended families. I understand this because I live a blended family as well. One of the really strong things I think Gottman Method offers are ways to deal with conflict. And in blended families, this is probably more important or as important as any other families. Because not only are you creating a sense of teamwork within your own family, but you're forced to try to negotiate and communicate with your ex-husband and your ex-wife. And this sometimes is not pleasant, because the way that you divorced was not pleasant. Maybe they're not reasonable, maybe they're trying to meddle, maybe they're trying to micromanage your parenting, maybe they're still in your life in ways that they really shouldn't be. Your ability to be your best self, not only for your family, is also important for how you negotiate with this ex-husband and ex-wife. There are ways that I personally understand and I can teach you that can improve those relationships. Helping you get on the same page with your partner is critical so that you can be a team when facing your ex-partner, your ex-wife, your ex-husband. One of the things that I think is really critical in blended families is understanding how to be on the same team with your partner.